We got to stop acting like the nuclear family is a bad thing. What we've done in the black community is we've normalized degeneracy. I don't like saying this, but one of the things that I've heard a lot of these modern feminists talk about, I've heard a lot of modern men talk about this. Well, the nuclear family is an outdated concept. The nuclear family was started by the white man. Let me tell y'all something. Y'all give the white man credit for any and everything. Let you Negroes tell it. The white man invented the moon. The white man invented the wheel. The white man invented the sun, the moon, and the stars itself. Y'all gotta stop this foolishness, bro. The nuclear family is child-centered. However, all the nuclear family means is that the primary responsibility for the raising of a child rests with its parents. I didn't say only, but the primary caregivers for a child are its biological mother and its biological father. I do not understand why we want to move away from a concept that works for every other race but ours.
We have to build the nuclear family, and we have to build it strong. And how I know that the concept is true is because God has already ordained that. That's how they get us. They attack the family first. They divide the husband and wife. Then they divide the kids out. You take them to the university, indoctrinate them, and they wake up hating their parents. They wake up hating America. They wake up hating freedom. And then we have a fallen society. Then they want to trick us to give away our rights for the sake of weaponized empathy, for them to have complete control. And we will not have that.
The nuclear family, we need man and woman to come together and stay together. All of this divorce is crazy. All of this, I don't like what you said, I don't like what you did. We ain't gotta be together and then leave.
But what I'm saying is, when you got the male or the female live and they walk away from their responsibility of a child and they leave them in a single situation.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It hurts the child. Single parent situation hurt the child.
It does. Functional. More functional, more,
Society ready.
When America believes in agriculture, America believes in extended family. When America believes in the factory industrialism, America believes in a nuclear family. But now that America believes in the computer, now America believes in a single parent family. And a farm, they both work the fields together. An economic reason to stay together. So that in 1910, 90% of all black children still lived in a two-parent household. But now we have the computer, and now you have women working just as much as men. And now you hear women telling men, I don't need you, got my own job, do what I want to do when I want to do it. And now we're down to 38%. When the economy changed, the family structure changed.
This is the truth about the nuclear family.
Your mom was a very typical of her era, stay-at-home mom. How do you think she felt about having to take that role?
My mother knew that the 50s were an aberration. She grew up completely poor. Her father died when she was 12. She had a single mother, who was a washerwoman, who barely spoke English. Everybody worked in the family because they had to keep a roof over my grandmother's head. She worked all through high school. And then she wanted to be a doctor, and she somehow got into college, into New York City College. So she wants to be a doctor. She can't be. She meets my father. They get married. He's a doctor. She's a brilliant woman. She's absolutely stunningly brilliant. She really wanted to make something of her life. She was determined to make something of her life. Here comes the 50s. If she had a job then, and I don't know that she did, I think she was busy having babies, she would have gotten kicked out of her job. So here she is in the 50s, using that brilliant mind to raise a bunch of noisy kids. She has no outlet for how smart she is. And she would say to us occasionally, you have no idea how good you have it. She knew that this was not typical. She did not live in a house. She did not have food security. She did not have a mother who stayed home to take care of the family. Her mother took in wash. I know that being in that role was incredibly destructive to her. And then it became incredibly destructive to us because she was so angry. She was so depressed. She was so angry. She was so frustrated. It was wrong. It was unsuitable to her. My father had grown up in a family that was much better off. They had 2 generations to build some wealth, and he played golf, and he taught her how to play golf, and it turned out that she was like a pro quality golfer because she was a great athlete. Once she figured out she could be really good at this, her whole life changed. She needed to be good at something. She needed to be good at something other than figuring out the wallpaper. When she found that out, her life changed. She went all over New York City and the metropolitan area winning golf tournaments. And we were so proud of her. And I think of the people who say we really needed a mother staying at home and all this. At a certain point, we could have taken care of ourselves, and we would have been much happier with a happy mother than with a mother who would take us to school and run out and play golf and then try to get home before we got home from school. That was crazy. And it made her crazy, and it made her angry. And she took it out on the family. And that happened to a lot of women.
So we all know, we've all heard the whole like, oh, they're nothing like our grandmothers were. Our grandmothers loved taking care of 19 kids and being in the house all day and getting ignored. Yeah. Our grandmothers loved that time. They were the best. No, they weren't. They were unhappy, and the kids suffered. They were unhappy, and the kids suffered. How do you? She's a boomer. This woman talking is a boomer. My mom is a boomer. This woman and my mom are probably the same age. They suffered mightily. They suffered mightily. And if you look at boomers, look at how fucking crazy boomers are. Look at how terrible boomers are. Where do you think that came from? Where do you think that came from? The generation. Listen to what I'm saying. Boomers were not the nuclear family generation. I mean, they weren't the parents in the houses of the nuclear family. That was the silent generation. The silent generation were the parents of the nuclear family. The kids raised in the nuclear family, right, for that little bitty ass block from the 50s to the 70s, they are boomers. They are boomers, right? That's what I'm saying. It's like, look at the boomers. Look how terrible the boomers are. Millennials talk cash money shit about boomers all the time, right? We talk cash money shit about boomers constantly. We know how fucking narcissistic they are. We know how they are. Where do you think that came from? Listen to what I'm saying. The most destructive group of people, the most destructive generation we've seen in America in the last 100 fucking years were raised during the height of the nuclear family. You guys aren't making that connection. You guys haven't connected that dot.
And of course, divorce was unacceptable in Catholic families. So people stayed together regardless of how detrimental and harmful it was to the family. It wasn't until I got to college and met women from, all over the Eastern Seaboard who had been, raised in Catholic families that I realized how widespread dysfunction was. Alcoholic fathers, guys coming back from the war were self-medicating because nobody would talk about it because that was considered being a coward. But, they were haunted by what they had seen. There was a lot of physical abuse. There was a lot of depression in that generation, and those kids had to live with that. And then there were the mothers who were just like my mom. They were brilliant. They were talented. They were awesome. And there was no outlet for what they did. And there was huge amounts of alcoholism among those women and drug abuse, prescription drug abuse. They were always taking uppers. I mean, the 50s were built on the backs of housewives. You couldn't have had the 50s if you didn't have a permanent class of indentured servants who got no money for what they did, who weren't eligible for Social Security for what they did, even though what they did was incredibly important and valuable and should have had a dollar sign, posted on it. And, those women paid the price for the prosperity that everyone has nostalgia for. And the other thing that, of course, it was built on was a massive infusion of money, of government money, to make that prosperity possible. That was another thing that was completely invisible at the time. We just thought It's always been this way. It'll always be this way. And that's not true. It had never been that way before. And women had always been in the workplace because they needed to. I mean, my mother like worked her entire life. And then she becomes a housewife and she wanted to work, but she couldn't. The jobs were crappy and they didn't pay well. And she would have gotten fired because she was bossy and smarter than everybody else, you know? I mean, it was a false prosperity in some ways. I mean, it was real and we experienced it as real, but you have to, when you take it apart, you really realize it was a moment in time.
Uh-oh. Further evidence that the nuclear family is not natural. It wasn't happening in nature. I know a lot of these men like to tout it as the natural order of things, but it wasn't. It was a fucking blip in time. If you guys have ever heard me on my lives, I've said that shit so many times that the nuclear family was a blip in time in American history. And America has only been around for like 200 and some odd years, right? 1776. It ain't been around that long, right? But these motherfuckers be trying to act like the nuclear family has been here. And I'm like, no, because when you think about it, Africans from Africa always practice a communal approach to raising kids and having family, right? Multi-generational approach. And then when you think about Europeans did too. Like Europeans did too. You mean the Greeks didn't do it? You mean the Polish didn't do it? The Italians did? Yeah, they all did it. They all were doing it. And they all still do it. To be honest with you, when Italian people come over here, I'll put it like this. Any underprivileged group of people coming to America, right? If you got a bunch of money, of course, you can do whatever you want to do. But any underprivileged group of people who adhere to more traditional values from their country, even, I'm saying, when they come to America, East Asian, Southeast Asian, continent of Africa, South Sudan, doesn't matter, right? Europe, definitely like Eastern European specifically, because, you know, economically speaking, Middle Eastern, so on and so forth. When they come to America, right now, even today, they still live in multi-generational homes. All of them do. I just moved. I grew up in Long Beach, but I just moved from Long Beach, right? To a different city. But in Long Beach, in 2025, when I just moved, there were I'm just trying to think. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses on my street. 5 houses on this side. So 10 houses in my little neighborhood where I was, right? I swear to God, out of the 10, 3 of them had multi-generational homes. 3. That's 30%. I mean, that's a lot, right? None of them, pretty much all the homes were Filipino. It was pretty much Filipino people. It was black. It was a black family, you know, whatever. The black family didn't live in a multi-generational home. The Filipinos did. Filipino family at the end did, and the Filipino family right next to us did. So that's 3 Filipino families that lived in multi-generational homes. And I'm talking like they were living in the garage, it was like 2 families in the same home plus the grandma, right? So it was like grandma, brothers, wives, and then kids of them. So it was 3 generations in the one home, and like the brother and his wife and their kids lived in the garage. That's how or it might have been the granny lived in. I don't remember there, whatever. It was one of them. And then another one, it was granddad, son, wife, brother, kids. Yeah. And then another one was mom, son, wife, kids. And I think brother. Mom, son, wife, kids, brother. Yep. In the other home. So people still get down like that, like from other countries when they come here. Right? That is America is the West, and by the West, I mean Europe. So like UK, specifically UK, France, maybe some Scandinavian countries, and the US Canada are pushing nuclear. I mean, and not even they're it's acceptable. It still feels normal. It's normalized in America, right? And I don't have a problem with it if that's what you want to do. Don't get me wrong, right? I've tried to live in a multi-generational home. I begged my family many a times to like, let's all move in together. Many a times, like not one time, years. I did it for years. Then I finally gave up on the dream. I was like, all right, cool, we're gonna buy our own house. And then me and my wife bought our own house. But I asked many a times my family, hey, let's get some land. And we could do it. Like I was like, I could do it myself. So I was like, why can't y'all just come? I was setting it up. I was like, look, I could buy something. Y'all could come live on it, pay me, whatever. I've had it all worked out. We had it worked out many ways, right? But yeah, they didn't want to come do it. They didn't want to come do it because they got that American dream. They got to buy their own house, and they got to. A lot of them do. A lot of them don't be out of it. Don't even be thinking like that. It's too big for them to conceptualize, right? But even my family though, even my family though, my mom, my brother, my niece, my nephew, they all live together for a long time, for years, like 20-some years. They lived together. So even then, my next door neighbor, same thing growing up. Grandma, daughter, grandkids. I saw it all the time. My auntie, same thing. It was my aunt, it was my cousin, and it was his kids. It was my grandma, my aunt, my cousin, and his kids. My grandma, my uncle, his wife. Like, I've seen it many a times. And it's better. That is the better situation. For the kids, for everybody, for the wives, for everybody. Everybody is better in that situation the majority of the time. And she also spoke to the way that the alcoholism that existed, the drug abuse, the depression, she can talk about the abuse. Well, she is talking about the abuse of the children because the children were abused. She's saying her mother abused them. She took it out. She took her frustration out on the kids. She said that multiple times. The father took it out on the kids. So you guys are telling me that's a healthy, safe environment for children? That's why when that dude in the video that I played before this, when he was talking about the 90% being together, who gives a fuck? Who cares? It just looks good on paper. It feels good, like, 90% of black children are born in a two-parent household. Who cares if the mother and the daddy fucking can't stand each other and they're abusing the children? Who cares? How does that help anybody? Because they're together? That's terrible. So y'all can never, you guys can never convince me that fucking nuclear families are on its face healthy. You can't. It doesn't mean that all nuclear families are bad, but you can't convince me that nuclear families are the healthiest approach to raising kids or to forming a family. That is such bullshit. It's such a lie. So they created a system to oppress women, to force women to stay with men. And men nowadays are romanticizing that, talking about we need to go back to that. Like, how sick are you?
Sure, it wasn't. I would guess that a single woman applying for a home loan through the GI Bill, I mean, I can't even imagine that would be allowed. You couldn't even have credit as a woman, so I don't even know how they would give a loan to you.
It's interesting because, you've got the 50s where the default is for women to stay home, but 5 years earlier, the country asked women to join the labor force in massive numbers. So I'm looking at some statistics here. In 1945, 37% of the domestic workforce was women. And then by 1950, it's down to 30%. So
Uh-huh.
you have all these women who helped participate in the effort to defeat, fascism, and then they're asked to go back into the kitchen. And I'm wondering what the psychological toll of ignoring their sort of contribution was.
I mean, I'll tell you, it had a massive psychological impact on us once we entered into the late 60s. I mean, I have a poster on my wall, which you can't see right now, of Rosie the Riveter. We knew nothing about Rosie the Riveter until the late 60s when women's history started, women say, hey, you have a history here that you really ought to know about, you know. And I got a flyer once from a group that wanted to do a museum dedicated to the women who flew planes all over the country for the Army, the women pilots who took the place of the men who couldn't, who were at war. Women did every job and they did it brilliantly. I mean, they ran the whole war effort and they were fantastic at it.
And those women that were flying all around, they were dying too. Like it would, like stuff would happen to them because they were like test piloting planes and stuff, right? Equipment and stuff would happen. They would die, but they would fly. They did their job pretty much, right? And the military was like, no, but you guys don't get any benefits. They were literally a part of the military, but the military was like, nah, you don't get any benefits after they got out. And as a Black man listening to these stories, it is, I promise y'all, if you are a Black man, I don't know how you cannot identify with this. Listen to what she is saying. She's talking about the revisionist history, how the history was suppressed, the contributions of women was suppressed. They didn't learn about it until the 1960s. You know what I mean? Like they didn't, how the women didn't get paid for their service in the military. Black men service in the military didn't get paid, couldn't get a GI Bill. How are y'all not? Are you not seeing the parallels between racism and sexism? Are you not seeing how the patriarchy? Are you not? That's not a easy kind of dot to connect right now. You just listen to what she was saying. It didn't send like a chill down your spine. Like my hair's pricked up as a Black man. Like I was like, whoa, that sounds exactly like what they do with Black people, right? That sounds exactly like they do with Black men. That sounds exactly what they do with Black women. But here's the coldest part. Black women get it both ways. Listening to it and talking about it from a Black perspective. Listening to her, I'm like, yep, I can see that happening as a Black man because they downplayed our contributions. But boy, oh boy, did they ever and do they ever downplay the contributions of Black women? Oh my God. Oh my God. It's like, I don't know shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to dig so hard to find what Black women did. Let them tell it. There was only 5 Black women that ever made an impact on our society at this point. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. It's really wild. And I want us all of the oppressed groups of people. I want us all to be able to hear this type of stuff and identify and be like, our stories are the same. Our plight is the same. Because our enemy is the same. Right? Black men don't get to say that we didn't build the patriarchy and then perpetuate it. Black men don't get to absolve themselves of the guilt, of the shame, of the harm that the patriarchy has done and has caused the world. But then at the same time, want to go back to the most oppressive times in the patriarchy. You know what I mean? Like we don't get to do that. So if you want, you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice, right? There's blood on our hands too as Black men. Women's blood, children's blood, even other men's blood. It's on our hands as Black men. In this country, I'm not even talking about on the continent of Africa. I'm not talking about anywhere else. In America, there are blood on our hands. There's blood on our hands too. And the blood is from Black women, Black children, Black bodies. You dig what I'm saying? So we don't get to sit up here and pontificate on the concept of going back to the 1950s and talking about how good those times were and how women nowadays feel. Like we don't get to do that. We don't get to do that. Nobody, the women don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. The kids, the babies don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. It's time to move forward. That woman laid it out perfectly for you. What more do you need to hear? It was terrible for the women. They didn't like it. Yo black granny didn't like it either. Your black, listen to what I'm saying. If the white mama didn't like it, you think the Black mama liked it? Fuck out of here. If the white mama was depressed and was drinking and was whatever response, what do you think the Black mamas was doing? What do you think the Black mamas was feeling? Now, granted, we know Black people we react or respond differently to oppression because we've suffered more oppression than any other group of people, specifically in this country outside of Native Americans, indigenous Americans, right? But it doesn't mean that we that we don't share a similar story, right? In so many ways, because we're all human. And when you are put in an oppressive situation, there's only so many ways you're going to react as a human being. You know what I mean? And white women were, even the white men that they were talking about, the white men that went off to war were oppressed as well. They went off, they got oppressed, they came back home, they became more oppressive. That's what happened. White women suffered, they were oppressed, but then they went on to oppress their kids. They went on to oppress black people. They went on to oppress. See how it trickles down? The oppression starts at the top, and it just takes some group of people to stop it. Somebody has to stop it. The buck has to stop somewhere. It has to stop somewhere, right? And I get, again, I get that not every situation was exactly the same, but the point is harm was coming to all of us. Harm was coming to black babies. It was coming to white babies. It was coming to white women. It was coming to black men. It was coming to black women. It was coming to white men. It was coming to all of us from the most oppressive group of people. There is no turning back, man. The women aren't going back. They're not going back, fam. They don't want it. That woman is a boomer, but she is telling the story of her mother, our grandmothers. She's passing that story on. All these women are hearing that shit. You think they want to go back to that shit? Stop trying to convince them. Stop trying to gaslight them into going back. Stop trying to manipulate them into going back. And stop trying to push these harmful policies that's going to make us go back. Stop voting for these toxic politicians, these Trumps, these JD Vances, these Republicans, whoever. Stop trying all this MAGA bullshit. Stop. It's over. The patriarchy is dying. Y'all don't even know. We in late stage capitalism. We're in late stage patriarchy. It's dying. It ain't gonna, if it survives, it's not gonna look the same. I promise you, it can't. It's impossible.